Oh yeah, it's recording me as I look at it like a crazy person. Whatever. Like, and I try and get away from it. Yeah, follows me. Anyway, someone's going to be entertained by that one. So thank you for taking the time to really look into that. I'm going to try, I know some of you still have questions. We're going to try and answer as much as we can today. But I will promise you that what I can't answer today, I'm going to take notes of. I'm going to shoot out an email. I already got some answers back for 6th grade during lunch. They are very, very good at getting back to us. That whole technology piece is brand new. And I have not had the chance to actually use it in a classroom. Like, I've played with it, I've used it, I've presented on it. But to actually, you learn things when you actually use them every single day. And I'm not in that position to be able to do that right now. So I don't know as much as I should, but I'm learning. But I can easily email the tech people, and they are very, very good about getting back to people in a really timely fashion. So any questions we can't answer today, I will make sure that we get you an answer soon. So we're going to do technology last. So who would like to start? Assessment or grammar? Grammar. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys. If you could just give your attention to them. And then if you have your skills practice teaching guide, if you can go ahead and pull that out, so that, because I'm sure they're going to refer you to some information in that document.
I have the introduction.
Okay.
So I'm just going to give you a little synopsis of what the introduction talks about. So it talks about how there's two main guides for the grammar or the skill practice. And one is the teacher's guide and one is the student book. In the teacher's guide, it's going to have 25 mini lessons and 5 review lessons. It'll have smartboard activities. It'll have the key for the practice book for the kids, so the teacher's key. It'll have individual and class assessments, and then it has 3 diagnostic proofreading and editing test scores. So that's all in this book. And then in the student manual, which Jen has up here, it has 3 practice pages per lesson, a student grammar guide for terms and definitions and examples for the students, and then it has 3 diagnostic proofreading and editing tasks for formative assessments. So that is the main thing that the introduction covers.
Okay, great. Anything else anybody wants to share? You want to show us the interactive stuff? Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Well, maybe I can't try. So online, we're just looking at a couple of the interactive resources, and I don't know, was it lesson 14 you looked at, Heather? I don't think that's it.
I think it was 12.
12? No, it's down one. All right, so maybe we can't show you, but anyway, there is a student.
Maybe look at some of those tabs that are already pulled up.
Are they? All right. Okay. So we found that there's 2 different types of these files. If you go online, every one of the lessons comes with, for example, this is somewhat interactive. It has a lot of the same tools you find on a smartboard. You can highlight, you can underline, you can draw on it. It's also available as a PDF, so if you wanted to, you could download these all as PDFs and print them right to notebook files if you're more comfortable with that and you don't have to use them online. But there are a couple of them that lend themselves well to online. And this is not one of them. But for example, there are a couple of them that will come up. Some of them, I guess it just depends on the lesson, have a separate tool which looks like a little finger with a star on it. And for example, if you're looking for helping verbs, if you click on a helping verb, it will circle it and it will say, yes, helping verb, and it will highlight it by itself. So there are some of them that are truly interactive. They've got things built in, and of course those you'd have to use directly online.
Great. Can you share with us some of your ideas about how you're thinking about incorporating this in with your Being a Writer lessons?
Maybe we can address some of that. We had the section that was to do like a lesson overview. So you could turn to any lesson in your book, and I think we're thinking that our 6th grade books have far less than what yours have. Your 5th grade books.
Because these have been revised,
Right.
yeah.
So you maybe are going to find more things that we didn't see. But if you just turn to the first page of any lesson, is it possible to get back that page that you had at the beginning, because I think that was similar. That one, yeah, okay. That one, so that looks like the beginning of a lesson. And so you'll notice at the top end where it tells you all the components, the resources there. And then you'll notice, like if you look at online resources and then the whiteboard activities, those whiteboard activities are embedded in the lesson. So, for example, we looked at nouns and possessive nouns, and the introduction really is not, typically in grammar, at least at the middle school, we would do a fairly lengthy introduction of what a possessive noun is, what a plural noun is. Here, they've actually combined those two together, which makes perfect sense when you think about it, because that's the mistake that people make, is every plural noun possessive. So, and the whiteboard activities appear to be things that you would use as part of your lesson. So your introduction is basically just telling you, we're going to look at some work with nouns today, or plural nouns, or something to that effect. But then we like the way that it seems like you're discovering the rules as they go. So in that first whiteboard activity, they're doing some examples, and then you can be talking about it as they're doing that. So that the rules are being discovered rather than posted up front. And then there's lots of options for repeating. So those, like on that initial slide that you saw at the top of your lesson, you'll notice that there's like 3 whiteboard activities. Those were embedded in the lesson for the practice and guided practice. But then there's also optional. You can see at the bottom there were optional lessons there for reteaching. And then we were looking at the reproducible, trying to figure that part out, and you guys looked at it, figured it out, but there are some, you referred to the diagnostic proofreading and editing tasks. We're thinking that maybe some of the things, we're not finding it in our manual, so. I have that, yeah. So that's neat, is that because it's not in this one?
It is in this one. The lessons though are pretty scripted,
Yeah.
just like making meaning and just like being a writer, it's pretty scripted, so if you want or need that, and there's that partner work, discovering things together with a partner in the guided practice. So that feels very familiar, what we thought we could do.
So here's one of those diagnostic ones, I think. Is that right? Look right? This is grade 4, I think.
What it says is, it says diagnostic proofreading and editing tests 1 through 3, and then in parentheses it says BLM 1 through BLM 3. But it says that in all the lessons. And so we're wondering, is there like a subset that correlates to each?
We can answer that.
Okay.
Okay,
good.
so this, the diagnostic, it is an option, we don't have to do it, and it's 3 separate, little tests that you can take at the beginning, middle, and end of the year, and, okay, so you can take these at the beginning, end, and middle of the year, and they just work on specific, the Common Core standards, so ours are mostly the pronoun standards, because that's what ours is. And so you don't technically have to do this portion of it, and it's just referring. So
So it
where
wouldn't
says
go
that,
specifically with this lesson. This is more of a general, which is what it's looking
it's
at.
just general.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
general.
And our 6th grade book is different than everyone else's book, so.
Yep.
But then I hope I'm not taking anyone else's. There's 3 ways to use,
So this is one thing that's common, K5, so you'll want to, this is a means by how you go about using those lessons.
there's 3 ways to use this, to do these lessons, and one is you can teach the skills in order, so just go front to back. The second is you can give the diagnostic test in the back, and then just teach what your students specifically need. And the third is just to teach by genre.
Yeah. So if you have your student, your teaching practice guide, the teacher's guide for that the grammar component, if you'll pull it out, look at the very front, because I know 6th grade didn't have this, but if you'll look at the very, very front, you'll see this chart. It kind of goes long ways, and it lists all the skills, but it also has the genres at the top. What page? Does anyone see it? I know you have. What page is that?
8.
Page Roman numeral 8. So what this does, and it's K5 for right now, but you guys will get it when they do the revision. So this lists all those skills, but it also has it in the context of those genres so that you have an idea of, okay, I'm teaching personal narrative. Which of these skills might make sense to teach during personal narrative that I know the kids will have opportunities to use, as well as which of those skills are already covered in a being a writer lesson in that genre. So you may want to continue to add to that. Great. So do you guys have anything else to add? Did I get everybody from up here? Do you guys have, are you sure? All right, so what questions do you have for this group about the skill practice teaching guide? Questions?
So if it's black, it's taught in the Being a Writer lesson. And then you don't have to use this unless if they need extra support.
Yeah, because you're only going to get like one lesson in there. So,
Compound sentences maybe, then you wouldn't need it after those 5 weeks, hopefully.
yeah, hopefully, yeah.
The ones that don't have a box at all are not addressed in Being a Writer, so this would be where if you see they need it, you would come to this and teach the supplemental lesson.
Yeah. But also it's going to give you those skill practice notes to let you know, hey, you might want to check to see how your kids are with this. And then if they don't have it, this would be a good time to teach it. But just know that if it is taught in your Being a Writer lessons, there's only like one exposure to it. And oftentimes that's not enough for kids. So you may look at it and say, oh, I know I'm going to be covering, I don't know what you just listed, compound sentences. There's only one lesson, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the lessons out of here to start on Monday so that will just support what I'm doing on Thursday when I get to that actual Being a Writer lesson, if that makes sense. Okay.
And one thing we had asked that we thought was helpful that you mentioned is it's set up by 30 lessons, so how long would, it says 1 week for a lesson. So she had said she taught the introduction day 1, the
Guided practice.
day 2, and then there's 3 workbook pages. So on day 3, the kids would maybe do it, as a group or with a partner. Second day with a partner, and then the third one it suggests that you take in the manual. It suggests you take that as a score on the 3rd workbook page.
Yeah. So it's really up to you how you decide to use it. They're giving you a couple options, what works for you. I think what's just nice is that, first of all, you have it. Your kids are definitely going to need it. I'm just making an assumption, but I know mine definitely needed that. But it's up to you how you go about using it, so you may have to play with it in a couple different ways to see what works best for you. I would say, though, those lessons, don't spend like 30 minutes on it. You probably don't even have 30 minutes, I'm thinking like 5 to 7 minutes. Like I did daily, 5 to 7 minutes. Because that's all they needed. Who wants to talk about verbs longer than 5 to 7 minutes? Or possessive pronouns or, things like that. But if we're doing it every day for 5 days, they're getting a good chunk of time to understand that. I shared with this group that it was the first time I actually saw application of these skills in the kids' writing. I'd never seen that before. So the tasks are very difficult. They're not things that you can necessarily just send home. You know how kids have mastered the art of the worksheet and they can pass it, have no clue what they're doing, but they can pass it? They can't do that with these sheets. They are difficult, but it's difficult, and that's a good thing because it actually shows application of the skill. So you may just have to think through, though, how you're going to go about using it. All right. Yep. Yep.
Our standards, for 6th grade language arts standards, pronouns is what our standards.
So if I could, I'm sorry, if I could just get everybody back this, sorry. I know it's hard, it's the afternoon, but, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Our standards dictate different aspects of grammar that we need to teach. In 6th grade, for example, it's pronouns. So, my question is, when I look at this, and we're already short of time, with this making meaning and being a writer. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at this, I know that our standards dictate I teach pronouns. So when I look, do I still start at lesson 1 and go through
Are we reteaching the same thing over and over again, I guess is what I'm asking.
No. So from grade level to grade level, it's going to build upon complexity. So it may be at a simpler level in other grade levels. Within your practice ones, I didn't see them getting more and more difficult. It was just more opportunities to work with it. So maybe you decide after one, they've got it, you're done. You don't have to keep doing the others just to get it. Does that?
So like the 7-minute little kind of review, so like it's kind of like a cycle back review, and I guess if an administrator walks in and goes, why are you teaching verbs?
Mm-hmm.
6th grade standards say you teach pronouns. Why are you teaching verbs?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's I guess kind of what
Well,
I'm
maybe
what
in
I'm
our
wondering.
grade level planning, we look at it and say, okay, our standards are verbs, ours are. And maybe that's what we focus on, but then as we're going through being a writer on that, you know, in that margin where it said this grammar skill might be helpful, maybe we pull in those as needed.
To cycle back and remind them of
Yeah.
previous, okay, that's
I
what I'm
don't know,
wondering.
that's just, I'm throwing it
Yeah.
out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The stand alone.
Because you know,
We'll talk about it when we're writing, we'll talk about subjects and predicates, but that's already been.
right. But you know, too, that sometimes you can say, yeah, they got it in this grade, but you don't see evidence of it or they don't get, you know, so it's just another opportunity to look at it. Yeah.
And it said in the diagnostic testing that that's supposed to identify the kids' needs and where they are at.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I just pulled up really quickly that diagnostic piece is on the Learning Hub as part of the assessment app. So you can document that information in there if you wanted to. Any of the scores that you take from the grammar lessons from those consumable pages can also be documented in here. So you can kind of see at the end how they're doing or what have you, compare those scores. So all of that you have access to as part of the Learning Hub that we'll look at in a little bit. Anything else you want to add? Thank you for taking the time to look through that. I know it's a lot of information to kind of look at, so thank you for doing that. So continue to think about how will I add this to my Being a Writer lessons. So when I talked about that 40 minutes, that wasn't necessarily a component, sorry, unless it's in a lesson that's in there. So I'm just advocating maybe adding like 5 to 7 minutes. It does not have to be, though, right before your Being a Writer lesson. If you have 5 or 7 minutes after lunch, then that's fine. It doesn't have to be connected per se, just making sure we keep talking to them about it during writing so that they do make that connection and it's not seen as an isolation. All right. I'm going to turn it over. Thank you so much. You guys did a great job. Yes?
I just have a question. What is WA? So in the
Whiteboard activity. Thanks. That's okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to assessment. So if that group wants to go ahead and come on up. Will you pull out your assessment resource book so that you can kind of look at that while they're sharing? All right, assessment, are you ready? All right. So if we could just get your attention this way, we're going to start over here.
Well, we looked at the overview, and the overview basically goes into some detail about each of the different types of assessment. But the one thing that kind of stood out for us, being that all the other groups are going to talk about each separate assessment, was the ClassView app that's available. And if you go to page 5, it's the very first page of the assessment overview book. That's for 4th grade. I'm assuming it's for the other grades too. At the bottom for 4th grade, it talks about the ClassView app, and there is that QR. Is that what you call it? To scan. And basically, what's nice about it is you can enter all of your data in there, and it collects it, sorts it, and will print reports and everything for you. So you get a real quick synopsis of how your class is doing and where the strengths and weaknesses are. So, and that was pretty much for our group.
Great, great, thank you. And I know the online group is going to show you that, and so you can actually see it up front. So great.
So then we have, so class assessments is the next chunk. And really, it's you're focusing on what, as a whole class, you're focusing on the skills that you're really teaching. And what we talked about is it could really tie into those targets, your learning targets, your I can statements. It's really nice. So if you turn to, talking about personal narratives, turning to page 32, what Becky and I were looking at is there's really a progression of the skills that are being taught and worked on, and then those questions are there for the whole class. But they're also, as the weeks go on, they're also referring back to some of those key things or those core things, and then building on as you're teaching your different skills. And then the other part that I thought was nice is, you always have those couple kids that aren't doing what they need to be doing, and so then down at the bottom of those assessment sheets are other considerations or other suggestions on how you can question or how you can get them more involved. So that script piece is there to kind of help guide
Great.
discussion.
Great.
I think that's all. Yeah, that's pretty much all.
Okay. And those will come up in your lessons and let you know that you need to conduct those. Remember, you have the basic outline in your manual, but then you can go to your assessment resource book to get like a recording sheet, or you can get your tablet, go online, and you can record it through the assessment app.
Can I point out one more thing? So the other thing that we were looking at is sometimes there were some weeks where there was just on one certain day there was a class assessment sheet. Sometimes, and then as the further you got into your weeks, then there were more assessment days as you went because you were adding in more of the skills. So they kind of build on each other.
Great. Great. Thank you.
We're next with individual writing assessments. And the key piece when we were reading about it, for me, and I don't know if Carol was before, but the goal of the individual assessments is to compare the same child from beginning to end their writing instead of comparing Lena to Angie. So I thought that was key because we're grading our writing, we kind of have one thing in mind of, did they get this, and then so this is you're actually just comparing the same child over time. And there's two different forms of this type of individual assessments. And one is where you're looking at their non-published pieces, the part in their notebook, and it actually has a rubric for you to make sure that they're staying on task, and that what they're non-published is showing that they are on task, they are doing the skills. So if you're looking at the report card, or progress report, whatever you want to call it, you can look at that as like an effort. Like, you know what? They're at a 2 because this is where they're constantly falling, even when they're practicing. So I like that piece for accountability. And then it does go on to show you 3 different writing examples and then how they would score them. And it's a 4-3-2-1 rubric, which goes really nicely with the way we are assessing at the elementary level with the 4-3-2-1. And I know that's kind of been a murky area for many of us in elementary. I hate doing the writing section of the report card because it's so subjective to what I'm feeling. So it actually gives you examples of what a 4 writing looks like. And it also has a part on there where it talks about like grammar and spelling, because I know at the elementary level, like, I want to come here, how do we grade this? And it actually has a 4-3-2-1. So you can keep record of all of these, and you can look back, and you have proof for the parents on just that accountable piece of teacher and a student, and now you have something to share with the parents. Not like, well, here's their one piece of writing, and they didn't spell worth a darn on this page, so they're getting one. It's just, there's more to it than that. And there's just more pieces for evidence, per se. And you can really sit down with the kid then. So the kid ideally will keep these, or you'll keep them. And then at the end, it has a reflection piece where you can sit down with the kiddo and say, oh my goodness, for the past 2 units, you still struggle with spelling. So this new unit, this is what you're really working on. So it has that reflection piece. And it has reviews for every unit but the first and the last unit. So the first writing unit and the last writing unit, they don't have this. But for every other unit, they have the examples, the actual rubric that you can use. So.
Great, thank you. Great job explaining that. So just to add on to that a little bit, so those rubrics are trait-based, so they have the 6 traits embedded into them. It is nice to have those samples because, yeah, sometimes I just want to see what it really should look like, or, you know. I really like the non-published piece because one of my issues was I'm in a 4-week unit. I cannot wait until the end of the 4 weeks to give a kid a grade. I wasn't, like I had to have 2 grades every subject every week. I had to find something else. So at least that non-published rubric, I know it just gave me some other ideas. Oh, I could take a grade from their notebook or from their quick writes, or, you know, if you are in that situation where you have to get some additional pieces. Also, you know, that last piece is all cleaned up. But what was kind of that progress? What did it look like on the trail, you know, getting there? Like, what are some things that maybe they're still grappling with that I want to keep looking at? That's where those come into play. When you go to the assessment app, it can sort all this stuff together so that you can bring all of that up together, their conference notes, their the assessment that you do at the end, the non-published one, as well as you can scan in their writing, and that'll all get collected and stored there as well, so you have it all together. If that's a feature that would be beneficial for you. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that you said it's not in Unit 1 and Unit 8, and I don't think I clarified with Unit 1 what Unit 1 is, now that I'm thinking about it. So in Unit 1, you are, as you're establishing that writing community, you're reading them lots and lots of different books in lots of different genres just to get the ideas going and the notebooks going. And what is it, 3 weeks long, I think, which is good. They've shortened it down. In Unit 2, they go back and read everything they wrote in Unit 1, pick one idea, commit to it, and now take it through the rest of the writing process. Can you look in your manuals and tell me what the name of Unit 2 is? Say that again. Say that one more time.
The writing process.
So what's our ultimate goal in Unit 2? Okay. Can you write this down or keep it in your head or something? Because I promise you it's going to come to haunt you come next October. The purpose of Unit 2 is what? It's not that they have this beautifully published piece, because it won't be. Don't add on lessons. You're going to cover some revision things like sensory details or leads, and you're going to say, but my kids didn't get it. But the purpose of Unit 2 is... and making sure that kids understand that this is a process that writers go through when they write a piece. That piece is going to be terrible because it's the beginning of the year. You haven't done a lot of instruction. You've got some kids writing fiction, some kids writing nonfiction, some kids doing poetry, and you haven't given any instruction on that. But the purpose of Unit 2 is... yeah, so you're going to let it go. Play the song, watch the movie, whatever you have to do, but you're going to let it go. They are going to be terrible, and every single year for like the first 4 or 5 years, I got hung up on Unit 2. I wanted to add lessons because those papers were so bad until I went back and thought, oh, the purpose of Unit 2 is... let it go. You're going to have other opportunities to work on those skills. We're just teaching them what that process is. But every year, it was so hard, and I just had to push my way through it. Because you are going to give them instruction in those things. It's just they have to understand that process that writers go through first. So that's why you don't have a rubric there, because it's kind of like 1 and 2 work together as one big unit. That's why. Okay. Who else in assessment is ready to share? Okay.
We talked about the social skills assessment, and it's page 176 in the resource book if you've got it. And it was a little frightening just in the fact that there's 19 things there to be assessed. Things like shares materials fairly, handles materials responsibly, reaches agreement before making decisions. And as we talked about it, we think we could take that 19 and maybe thin it down to about 4 or 5 or maybe even 3 things. There's a fall, winter, spring evaluation. It's a 1, 2, 3, which is a little different than our report card, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And a lot of it, of course, would just be classroom observation, handles materials responsibly. They need a 1, 2, or 3 on that. Does not implements independently. So, yeah, we thought we'd have to thin that down a little bit, tweak it to make it fit what we do for
Sure.
evaluation.
Sure.
Grading.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So I will say I've never used that document,
Okay.
and not because I don't believe in
understand
it, but yeah. But I will tell you that there's a lot of your lessons where you specifically talk about how are we going to handle materials responsibly. And so you're mentioning those things. I'm like, oh yeah, we do lots of lessons on those. You'll be able to pick up on those things. You can tell real quickly who can and who can't. But also to know that you've given fair instruction on it as well. It's been embedded in the lessons that you're teaching. So I haven't used it, but I do think it's a good document. It just was one more thing, and how do I fit that in? But somebody has suggested to me that they used it for their RTI students that were in RTI for behavior because it could track that growth of those skills. So it's up to you how you decide to use that assessment. I think one thing, it's just neat that they help the students become aware of those things and that we are giving them opportunities to learn how to handle themselves in those situations. So thank you for sharing. Anybody else for the assessment group?
The last part.
Okay.
Beginning and end of the year assessment. There's a baseline, or you do it to get the baseline for the beginning of the year. The prompts for the beginning of the year and the end of the year are the same, so you can see this progress. There's a beginning of the year writing prompt record that you can use. That's on video online and in the book. Supposed to do the beginning one within the first month, and then the end of the year one at the end of the year, or the end of the month of the last month. There's a lesson guide for both. They have a prepare section, how to conduct it, and then how to analyze the beginning and the end of the year.
Perfect. So you have your end of the unit ones, and then you also have that beginning and the end of the year if you wanted to use that. One of the things I asked you to kind of think about is, or maybe I didn't, but I will, is a lot of districts that I go into, they already have something that's required out of them from the district. And so maybe I don't know what you have required for you as far as writing assessment, but maybe think about that and how does this play into it? Is this similar? Is it different? Just some things to start thinking about. In regards to the assessment. They've spent a lot of time really working on this piece and really thinking about what's being required of us in districts as far as, sharing that information with other teachers, with parents, and they've tried to provide us with as many different options for that as they could. So what question, anybody else for the assessment? Did I get everybody? What questions do you have for them about the assessment portion of it? Great. Thank you so much. That student self-assessment, I think that's the one you were looking at. That one goes right along with Common Core, too, getting the kids to self-assess themselves. And so I really like that piece that's built into there. So, all right. So our last one is the technology. So I don't know if you guys want to use up here to demonstrate. I don't even know where technology is. Yes? No? Yes? Do you want to use up here and then we can go and all explore, or how do you want to do this? Exactly. Yeah. So let me pull it up here and then you guys can start just however you want to do it is fine with me. Do you want to explain and I can kind of navigate through as you're explaining?
Sure. Who wants to talk about the beginning of the unit? I don't know which one had which. I mean, I was going to talk about the whiteboard lesson, but you guys already did that. Like the flashlight, and clicking on the flashlight and bringing you to that lesson. And
Oh, see, you did her work for her.
I felt like you touched on technology, which is awesome.
Was there any piece that we can add to, though, with that grammar piece that you found? Because we were just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I was just kind of browsing to think of where to find it, and I didn't, look at the tutorial, so if you like tutorials, there was plenty of tutorials to look at, and then they give you an interactive lesson, so if you went back up, sorry, are you already clicked on one?
Oh, I just did the tutorials.
Oh, yeah, anyways, you could do a tutorial for so many things in that.
same thing as I talked about, the rubrics you were talking about, Ian. Those are also online, and you can look at those. You can show the kids, what a 4 might look like if so they can see that model up there with their red.
Great.
But yeah, same thing Jeff talked about, PDF files, you could print it if you wanted to.
So like right here, and just yell at me and stop me if I'm saying something you guys are going to share. But so on this, I don't know, this tab right here, you can select what it is that you're using. Like if you're using the teacher's manual or the skill practice, I'm in the skill practice right now. And then here's all the lessons right here. And then it brings up any of the resources that you need. And then just like she said, you have this little circle thing is the interactive whiteboard one. But if you click on this one, it just comes up as a PDF. So wherever your comfort is or whatever resources you have available, you can choose it that way.
Yep, that's perfect.
And then all the assessments are included as well.
Yeah, we can do the assessments next.
Okay.
I think that fits.
Do you want me to go to the app?
Yeah, you want to go to the class view?
Yeah, one thing that I've just been looking at today, it keeps saying in all the resource books that you can get to the app. And when I hear app, I can go to the Apple App Store, download it, and it's not an app, it's a website. So don't go looking for
Yeah.
an app because it's not there.
There is an app.
There's a DSC app,
Yeah.
but you can't access ClassView
No.
through that. It goes to the website.
You can access all of your curriculum.
Yes.
And you can use all the manuals that we have are right on one spot. And you can view all of the videos that you have to access through QR codes right on their app. So you can, there is value to it. And
Yeah.
I have a feeling that as people start doing more, they'll probably update it to be able to interact with things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at this point, you cannot get to ClassView through the DSC app. And it's a really cool thing that you can do through the ClassView. So like the group that I was talking about assessment, you can go through and for each student track how they did in the pre-writing and the different class assessments and going through all those. And then it tallies it and scores it for you so that when it comes to progress reports and report cards, it's really easy to just import that stuff in for writing.
Is that kind of what you were looking at, this right here? Yeah. And I just have like a couple names of kids that I haven't put in scores, obviously, but
Then you want to go back to the back navigation right there, and then
yep.
I went. This kind of goes in with the assessment group. I went just on the personal narrative part, and this is where electronically all of your forms are from the assessment book. So this is electronically where you can go. The class assessments, obviously for this one, that was for each week. So CA1 is week 1, CA2 week 2, and so forth. So those are all your class assessments. You have your conference notes, your student self-assessment that they were talking about. So I'll just kind of click on there. So this one, it's exactly the same out of your book, just electronically. So down here, this is where they would be assessing themselves. Ultimately, other observations, and then the next steps you can type in here as well.
On some of the units, you can scan in their work too. So you can score them, and then instead of keeping the paper copy that they have, you can just scan it digitally, and then it's all in the same spot.
And then this is kind of the individual writing one. And then attaching the student work so you'd be able to upload the files here.
Can you print any of those pages?
That's what we were trying to find out, if we could.
You should be able to.
I did before I came here, is actually printed certain things off there. So I was able to step out the PDF.
That, yes, but we were wondering, like, as the reports, like, for kids, we could group their work. That's what we were kind of wondering. Especially during conference time, it'd be nice to have all their forms in one spot. But, and then,
I guess it kind of counteracts having it digital if you're going to print it though. Then you might as well just make a copy of the resource book to begin with, so that you don't have to do it all digitally, do all the work of inputting into your computer, and then just printing it. If you just like the first quarter,
Do you see this as something that you pull this up on your iPad and it's sort of you're sitting with that student putting it in, or do you see this as something that you put in after you've already met with them?
I think if you are good at observing it, like I like to write things down first, and then if I was getting good at it as the year progressed, I could probably just create my iPad and kind of check, yep, most of the kids are getting it or most of them aren't. But if you wanted to keep track, like Wendy was saying with, oh, this kid doesn't get it, so I'm going to write his name or her name, you can't do that on the electronic because it's just a dot that you click.
Can you write it in on the notes?
Um,
I'm wondering if you
with
might.
the class assessment, I don't know if there was a notes section. I know that once you click an area, yes, you could write
Yeah.
any other observations.
Yeah.
Record
Yeah.
kids you want to target next time.
So I think it's a teacher preference. For me, if I didn't record it right then and there, I never would record it. But yeah, for other people who that works first to write it down first, then it's completely up to you. Yeah.
Well, and if you're filling things out digitally too, I think of like we've got kids going through special ed assessments right now, and if a case manager said, hey, how's, this kid's IEP goals are this with writing, and I could go click, print, and give them
Well, you can
what
share
I
it on
have
here
here.
too. You can click someone's email and share it with them digitally, so they get an email with those records. So you're not having to print it and pass it and put it in a folder. You can just email it right to that person.
That's great. Great. Anything else with technology?
I have one. At the beginning of units, it says technology mini lessons. It's like in third grade on page 341. I don't know if you can pull that up. Can we see the
The manual?
there?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. I'm in volume 2.
Yep. Grade 3?
Yep.
And you want the actual manual?
Yeah, that'd be
Oh, sorry. Let me.
I'd say okay.
And where am I going?
I'm on page 340. Just maybe one more click. That's
Can you-
weird.
Oh, it's volume 2, though. Did I pull up volume 1? I did.
Or I can even say just in the beginning, any unit, it'll show, if you go to any beginning, can you see where it says technology mini lessons? Has like a little, like a finger pointing. Yeah, in volume 2. Those are, it looks like, I thought those were things you could click on and find a website. It's actually, this little mini lessons you'll find in the back of your volume 2 in your teacher's manual. They're kind of like what your media specialist might teach as far as like, web, what do you want to say? Yeah.
Like your
That's our other hat, right? But like say web, what do I want to say, like web courtesy or like search engine, how to like refine your search.
Digital citizenship.
There you go.
yeah, privacy online and like what you post is going to be there. And how to
Is that right? Where?
I was thinking it was like another thing we could scan or click on. It's not. It's just a lesson if you want to teach, like say, on like web use. There's another one below that says technology extensions, and that just goes into like say like if you're teaching unit one says like watch or read an interview with Joanne Ryder. It'll tell you what it doesn't take you anywhere. It says in your manual in the lesson like you can put this in and have your kid go into a search bar and type in Joanne Ryder. So that was just to kind of clarify. I was expecting you to click on it like digitally on the website, but it's not.
Yeah. So it's actually going to be in your print manual, but they have included those pieces. So great. Thank you for looking through, because I know we were trying to figure out. I didn't know the answer. So thank you for finding the answer. Great. Great. Anything else from the technology group? So when you, let me just walk you through the logon really quickly, and then I'll tell you how we're going to kind of finish up today. When you get on, it's going to ask you if you did a trial. You're going to have an option. Remind me at the bottom. I think it said technology group. that you'll click on this option at the bottom. It'll say your district has already purchased this, so you'll click on that. And so it'll bring up some, you'll use your old account information though, right? Am I saying that right?
Yep, your email and password you used.
Right.
We'll redo it, you're just reinstating the
Right.
subscription.
Okay, perfect. So then when you get, if you had a pilot, you already had an account, use the same login information, and then it'll ask you for the school district and the zip code, and the zip code was 55033. You'll pick it's a public school. Some of you found specific names of schools. Some of you just found Hastings School District, I think. You'll click on that, and then it'll have you choose your grade level. Just choose your grade level, because if you choose another person's grade level, you're taking an access site away from one of them, because it's just one access for each kit that was purchased. So choose your grade level, and then it'll bring up all the resources that you have. So when you get into the hub, you won't have all of those manuals. Like I know you guys saw on mine, I've got everything. You'll just have your grade level. Oh, did anybody look at the online course in the technology group? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad I see it. So, yeah, I'll show you in just a second. So, you will only have your manual that will come up. So, once you click on your manual, you'll see all the stuff that you have access to. Here's where you can filter it out if you want to just get certain things. But this is where, like, you can say, I'm in the expository nonfiction. I am week 1. And I just want to know what I need for day 1. Everything is right here that you need. So if there's any reproducibles, if there's any assessment, everything comes up in one spot for you. You can look at it for the entire week or just, for certain days. These right here are PD videos. They're oftentimes cited in your manuals, but so you also have access here as well if you just want to pull them up so you can watch them. They're for you, not for the kids. The T down here, this is where the tutorials, some of you were talking to, mentioning this. So there's tutorials on being a writer or on the hub itself, and just quick information that you can view to help you out with either of those. Then you also have this right here this question mark thing. If you have any questions, that's your best bet, is to go there and to email them your questions. I can email other consultants or other reps, and it'll just get forwarded to that department. So it's just as easy if you just bypass me and just email them. And they are very good about getting back to you, mindful that they are on Pacific time, but they will get back with you very quickly. The other thing that's interesting is the tutorials are based upon teacher need. I may have mentioned this before. So if you guys are all asking questions about a certain element, they're going to go and create a tutorial for that, because that's what they're seeing is the need from teachers as they're watching, how people are using the site. Let me just show you this one other thing. One thing I would strongly suggest that you do because on the airplane, I know lots about planes, and a lot of times you can get on the internet, it's just for a minimal fee, and so lots of times you're really bored on the plane, like a really long flight to Hawaii or out of the country, so you could do this online course, right? Right? Make good use of your time. So they have a Being a Writer online course. There's several different modules, maybe 5 or 6, and they're on different topics within Being a Writer. So you can get on and take the module. I promise you they only take like 20 minutes. That's all they take. A lot of them include videos, so you can actually see it in action. And a lot of the information comes from classroom teachers who have already used Being a Writer. So it really is a good resource to go to, even if you just do one module just to kind of get you going, and maybe later on you want to look at the assessment one. Or maybe after that, then you decide to look at the planning one. It's not necessary to do them all at once. once, but it is kind of a nice resource to have. Maybe you forget everything that you heard today, even though today was really good. You can come back and access it there. What questions do you have for the technology group about the online component?
I just have one comment, because I did this over lunch. If you go in to sign up for an account, if you've already signed up for Making Meaning during this past school year, you've already got an account. You don't have to restart another one. Your account's already in there. You just have to remember the password for this. So when you log in, you just have to add being a writer to your account.
Great. So so if you don't know the web address, it's teach.dev, short for developmental, stu.org, and that's how you get to the Learning Hub. teach.dev, stu.org. The other resource that you may want to look at is their actual company website. It is at www.collaborativeclassroom.org. One of the nice things that they just did on here is if you go to the Learning Resources tab, I think, you can bring up all the videos. They have invested lots and lots and lots of time going out to different districts who've been using their programs and getting some really, really good video in classrooms with kids, with teachers, with administrators. And so one thing they just got this done is that you can filter it out. So maybe you just want to look at teacher facilitation. You're an intermediate teacher. You want writing, and there are no videos. Anyways, you didn't filter it out that much, but so that you don't have to look through everything. That's funny that did that. But anyways, you can filter it down so you can kind of specifically get to what it is that you're wanting to see. They have some really, really, really good videos. Sometimes I just need to see it in action, that reading about it isn't enough, and so there you can see firsthand.
Can you show us on the actual website as a whole group the Common Core piece?
Oh, yeah. So on the home page, and I'm looking for search. I may not. They changed the website, so let me look for a second. Oh, you're right. I saw that. Yeah. But these might just be videos. Yeah. And if I can't find it really quickly, I'm going to keep looking. Okay, let me keep looking because they've changed the website. So let me keep looking, and I'll pull it up for you and let you know before you leave. All right, what questions do you have for the technology group? I know. You kind of just have to get your feet wet with it because I think that's when you really know what questions you have. And so before you leave today, I'm going to leave my email address. Because even if it's come September, you really get into these materials, I don't want you to hesitate to email me. So I don't want you to get stuck and then decide to just give up on it. And so we want to make sure that we do provide you that support as you continue on. But I will say I think it's so smart that you're getting this now instead of those 3 days before school comes back or whatever, so you can really kind of think through it and add this as a piece of your itinerary for your summer vacation. No? Try. All right, so this is what I like to do for the remaining part of the afternoon. I know that some of you are thinking about how do I put all this together. I know some of you are thinking, I want to get on and get my accounts created so I can, look to see what I have access to. So I'd like to give you like the next 15, 20 minutes to think about those two things. To either get on a computer and get your account created so you have an account before you walk out today. And then if you've already done that, or when you finish that, to get together with the people in your building or the people in your grade level and start thinking through what is your next step? Where do you want to go with this? What is this going to look like in your classroom come next year? Thinking about how am I going to put this together with making meaning? I don't know necessarily the answer. I think a lot of that depends on the timelines that you have. You may want to think through what we talked about earlier. Somebody asked a brilliant question. Is it okay to have the 2 read alouds in the same day? So you may want to think about, are we in a position where we can separate out the time that we do our writing instruction from our reading instruction so they aren't back to back? Is there a way we could stagger it? Maybe day 1 we start making meaning, day 2 we start being a writer, just so that we don't always have those day 1 read alouds on the same day. Think through some of those things. In our schedule, where can we fit 40 minutes, or how can we get close to that? And then if we're thinking about dividing up lessons, how can we think about some time where we can get together to think through strategically how we can divide those up if we absolutely have to with the Being a Writer lessons. Your Making Meaning lessons, once again, about 20 minutes with your IDR component included in that. But I realize that you may be doing other things during the IDR. Okay? Does that help a little bit to get you going? So I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. Just don't leave. But I'll give you till about 3. Let's come back together at 3:15 to kind of wrap up. So either getting your accounts created and go online and do that, or get together with other colleagues in your building or in your grade level to kind of start filtering through this material.
Give us your email or do that at the end?
I will do that at the end. Yeah. Yep.